start from first slide, please.
First slide.
Yes, sir. Our recording session now starts. Please start from first slide.
Okay, just wait.
Sorry for inconvenience.
Is
Thank you,
okay?
sir.
So, it is okay, it is visible now?
Sir.
My slide is visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I have to restart.
Yes.
Okay.
Just no, sir. You can continue with second or third slide now.
Okay, okay. So friends, as I was discussing, where this methane is produced in the animal, so it is the rumen part. As you know that the ruminants, they have the 4 compartments in their stomachs: rumen, reticulum, omasum, abomasum. Uh, so it is the rumen where the methane is produced. When any feed material is ingested by the animal, it goes to the rumen, and there is some microbes are there. They convert the polysaccharides, monomers or monomer units, and then it can go to the VA phase, and then different kind of the VA phase like STK, beta-hydroxy, sulfonic acid are produced in the rumen. And accordingly, if you see the production of the these VFAs, they produce the hydrogen, and when this hydrogen is produced and the carbon dioxide is there also in the gases, then the methanogen bacteria, they are available in the rumen. They use the carbon dioxide and methane, and they convert into the they convert into the carbon dioxide and hydrogen into the methane, and thus the methanogenesis occurred by the participation of the methanogen bacteria. If you see, there are a number of the methanogen bacteria, but Methanobacter rumensia, it is the main species which is responsible for the methane production in the ruminants. Again, friends, if you see, this is the typical composition of the rumen gases you will see. So, number of the gases are produced during the fermentation or the digestion of the feed and fodder in the rumen. So, these are the important gases. It is the proportion of the different gases. If you see here, there, the carbon dioxide, it is around 26.8%. Methane is 65%. The nitrogen is 7%. Hydrogen, oxygen, they are in traces. So, sorry, it is the carbon dioxide which is the 65.5%. It is the methane which is 26.8%. So it is written invert there here, but it is the mainly the carbon dioxide, and then methane, then nitrogen, and then oxygen and hydrogen. So minimum concentration of the hydrogen in the rumen and maximum of the carbon dioxide. Again, this is the presentation. Again, this is the rumen ecosystem where is the methane is produced. It has a certain temperature. You say 38 to 39 degrees centigrade is temperature. pH is between 6 to 7%. So this is you are seeing here when any feed materials come to the rumen, how that is degraded and fermented into the rumen, and with the help of the microbes, it is converted into the ammonia. So these are some of the.
Can you please because it's not in food screen mode.
Then Methanobacterium formicicum, Burkeri, Mobileri. So these are some of the methogenic.
Hello? Sir, can you click on the slideshow, sir?
Slide show. Okay.
Because it's not in full screen mode.
Now it is okay? It is okay?
Is it okay?
Okay. So just I tell you that this is the human ecosystem and how the methane is produced with the participation of the methanogen bacteria. I just explained in my previous slide also. So this is how the methane is produced in the rumen. Again, as we were discussing that why the methane is produced. Can we stop the methane production in the rumen? No, we can't stop the rumen methane production in the rumen. If we try to reduce or completely inhibit the methane production, then the degradation of the organic matter will not be there, and there will be no digestion in the system, and there will be no energy available to the animal. So this methogenesis process is important for the degradation and availability of the energy to the animal. And during the digestion and fermentation, whatever the hydrogen is produced, it is utilized by the methogens, and it is converted into the methane. So we can't stop the generation of the methane in the human system, because it is essential for the digestion as well as the energy availability to the animal system. So friends, most of the most of the strategies to reduce the methane emission in case of the ruminants, they are mainly based on 2-3 things. Either they are through the dietary manipulation, or they are through the manipulation or modulation of the rumen. Whatever the things you are seeing here, like the archaea methogens, acidogens, sulfate reducers, nitrate reducers, and fumarate reducers. So these are some of the pathways which are responsible for the utilization of the hydrogen. Because if we are using this pathway where the archaea or methogens, they are participating, and they are using the carbon dioxide and hydrogen, and methogens are there, and this is the pathway of utilization of the hydrogens. In that case, you are seeing that methane is produced. If we are increasing the concentration of the estrogens, in that case, the carbon dioxide and hydrogen utilized by the estrogens, it is not being converted to the methane, but it is going to produce in the ester like that, CH3COO. And if we have the pathway like the sulfate reducers, that is why, so they are the different ways, and then the nitrate reducers, and then the fumarate and succinate, or you can say propionate. So these are these another pathways which utilize the hydrogen in the rumen, and the end products are different. So definitely most of the strategies which are being used globally, they are either having the effect on the sulfate reducers, either including nitrate reducers, or they are using the fumarate reducers or the propionate enhancers. So these are some of the pathways that are being targeted to inhibit the or to mitigate the methane emissions. So friends, as I told you in the beginning, so the agriculture sector, the most of the nitrous oxide and methane are produced by these 5 things. That's the first is the inter-fermentation. It is mainly by the sheep, goat, cattle, sheep, goat, donkey, etc. Then manure, rice cultivation, and burning, and then agriculture source. So these are the 5 major sources of the greenhouse gases, or you can say of the methane and the nitrous oxide in the agriculture sector. If you see the global livestock population and methane production, you see here, this is the population of the different subcontinents, and including India. It is the old one data. But if you see, earlier the India was producing about 12 teragram, but now at present you see the India is producing about 10 teragram. So this figure is of 5 to 10 years back, when this comparison was made with the globally. So if you see, so this is the trend. Mainly the Asian countries, they are producing around 37.3 teragram of the methane per year. It is counting around 37% of the total global methane emission from the livestock sector. And if you see the share of the India, it is around 12% of the total livestock, or 30% of the global livestock methane emission India is contributing. If you see of the total greenhouse gases, 14% of the methane globally is produced by the livestock. Again, this is the data from the Ministry of Environment and Forest, where our institute was also the part while developing the methane emission factors. So if you see how the total methane emission is going to increase with the passage of time. In the first time we reported our total methane from the inter-fermentation, it was 18 teragram, then it 19, then 21, and then 20. Now at present we are around having 20 teragram of the total methane emission from the different sectors of the agriculture for the methane emission. Friends, here you will see what is the contribution of the different sectors or different components of the agriculture sector. Interfermentation, you see, the values are in the gigagram. This is the picture from the 1994, then 2000 to 2005. If you see, there is an increasing trend from the interfermentation. It was 8.9 teragram, then 10 teragram, and right now it is 10.3 teragram. And then it is from the manure management, you can say, around 0.9, you can say, or 1 teragram from the manure management, and then it is reduced to 0.2 and then 0.1. It is because of the manure management practices that we have followed to mitigate the methane from the manure management. Because we have adopted in the commercial dairies the digestion type of the management system where the emission of the methane is less. That is why we have reported less methane from the manure with the passage of the time. Again, you see here, this
Sir,
is
can you resume presenting? Somebody accidentally started presenting. Can you resume presenting? At the bottom window in Meet, you will see.
again, this is the methane emissions. What was the status of the greenhouse gases or the?
Sir, can you resume presenting?
Pardon?
Can you resume presenting? Basically, somebody came and started presenting accidentally.
I, how can I resume? I stop and then start.
No, just press Alt tab, come to Meet window where you used to see the face. In that very option, you do resume presenting. In Meet, in Chrome.
Now, what I have to press?
Alt and tab key. Alt key and tab key to switch between windows.
I don't know. No, how I can do? What I have to do?
Hello, sir.
Pardon? Yes, yes.
Press Alt and tab key on the keyboard.
Press
Alt
Alt.
key and key. Tab is on the upper side of caps lock.
Yeah, I'm not able to.
Or end the show slideshow, end the slideshow. Come to Chrome.
Actually, I am saying just meetgoogle.com is sharing or stop sharing or hide. This is the option that is available with me. Okay.
Can you
Just
stop sharing and start presenting again? The same way initially I said.
Just wait, just wait. You have to get exit. Screen.
Sir, can you come to Chrome window?
Chrome.
Yes, come to where you have Meet.
Oh, here.
Yeah, then do stop sharing.
Stop sharing.
Yes. Then present now again.
And then?
Present now, the same way you did present now. And choose a window option.
Okay.
Then choose the PPT window.
Okay, yes, I'm doing.
Participants, again, I'm requesting, please do not start presenting. This disrupts the whole process.
Okay, friends, as I was discussing in my previous slide that this is the greenhouse gas emission trends. What is the trend?
You are not presenting as of now.
Pardon?
You are not presenting. Can you come to Meet window where you can say present now? Google Chrome.
Not visible?
No. Present now, then choose a window. Then in the windows, choose PPT window.
Okay, man. This one is here. Then
When you select the PPT, then at the bottom, share now.
okay. Getting problem. Present now, na?
Yes. Then choose window.
Okay. The whole process is gone back.
Yeah. Actually, somebody accidentally started presenting. That took
Oh.
control away from you.
Now it is visible?
No. As of not. Yeah. It's starting.
It's starting.
Yes.
Okay.
Start the slideshow.
Okay.
Please continue, sir. Start the
Okay.
slideshow.
Okay, thank you. Friends, in this slide you are seeing that what is the trend, what is the trend of the greenhouse gases in our country over the period. This is the cumulative annual growth rate. What is the annual cumulative growth rate over the years of the total greenhouse gases? Here we have like carbon dioxide, then you are seeing the methane, then you are seeing the nitrous oxide, and then other gases which are mainly from the industry, like the hydrofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, sulfur hexafluoride. So this is the trend. If you see, in 1994, we were having 18 diagram. You can say then 20 diagram, 19 diagrams, then 21 diagrams, then 20 diagrams. So this is the trend. How the different greenhouse gases they were produced or emitted in our country. So this is the trend. Here you can see the methane, and then here you are seeing the nitrous oxide, and here again the carbon dioxide. So this is the trend, how the methane and the other gases are increasing or decreasing over the different years. If you see, interestingly here, in case of the hydrofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, and sulfur hexafluorides, so these are mainly the gases which are from the refrigeration and others. Here you see, so it is increasing. As there is a increase in the industries, and the concentration of these gases, that is increasing. Here you see, it was 1.61, then 3, then 4.61. So it is because as there is industries are growing up, the concentration of these hydrofluorocarbon and sulfur hexafluoride gases, this is increasing, while there is a constant or decrease in case of the methane and the nitrous oxide. Again, you will see here what is the trend of the different gases sector-wise. It is not only the agriculture, but all other sectors which are contributing to the greenhouse gases in the country. Agriculture sector is contributing 29%. In 1994, if you see, the agriculture contributed 29% of the total greenhouse gases, mainly the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and ammonia. And in case of the you see, then in 2000, it comes to 23%. If you ask why it is so, because there is an increase of the industries or energy sector. That is why the contribution of the energy sector has increased from 62% to 67%. And in case of the agriculture sectors, we have adopted different mitigation strategies, not only in case of the ruminants or livestock, but also in case of the rice cultivation, because around 3 to 4 teragram of the methane is also emitted by the rice cultivation, mainly the submerged areas where the not from the hills, but the rice which is cultivated in the submerged areas. So that is why the contribution of the agriculture sector is increasing. Then if you see in 2005, again it comes to 20%, and then in 2007 it is 19%. So the contribution of the agriculture sector is going down to the total greenhouse gas emission of the country with the passage of time. It is because of the use of the certain varieties, certain mitigation strategies, and so on. Now you see what is the gas by gas trend. Again you see in 1994 the 32% was the contribution of the methane, 63% was the carbon dioxide, and 5% of the nitrous oxide. We were not in a position in 1994 to estimate the other gases like the hydrofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, sulfur hexafluoride, because we did not estimate these gases in year 1994 because we were not having the methodologies and facilities to estimate these gases. But in 2000, we reported from India these gases. It was around 1%, as it is written here. The contribution of the methane was 26%, nitrous oxide 5%, carbon dioxide 68%. And later on, with the advancement in the methodology and other things, we started reporting these gases. And the contribution of these gases increases with the passage of the time. If you see, in case of the year 2007, the contribution of these gases increased, and it was up to 2% of the total greenhouse gases. So this is the total. What is the contribution of these different sectors to the methane and nitrous oxide in particular? Because we are mainly concerned with the nitrous oxide and methane. Again, you see total 20 teragram, and agriculture contribution 14%. And within the agriculture sector, the livestock sector contributing around 10 teragram. So this is the trend. This is from the other sectors like land utilization and land use change, forestry, and then industrial process and product use, waste. So these are the different sources or sectors which are responsible for the India's national greenhouse gas emissions. Friends, this is the contribution of the different subsectors within the agriculture. So these indirect fermentation, agriculture soils, rice cultivation, manure management, and crop residue burning. Out of these 5, you see, the inter-fermentation is contributing 54% of the total greenhouse gases. So mainly the livestock is collected in agriculture for the greenhouse gases. Then it comes to the agriculture soils, because it is mainly through the nitrous oxide, and mainly the nitrous oxide and some ammonia. And then in case of the rice cultivation, it is 18%, and manure management is 7%, and crop residue, the least contribution of the crop residue is 2% from the crop residue to the total greenhouse gases in the country. So that is why we are advising our farmers not to burn their crop residues, because they are also emitting the greenhouse gases and causing the global warming. So in this slide, friends, you will see what is the contribution of the different species. What is the contribution of the different species to the green intermethane? We are not discussing here the total greenhouse gases, but particularly the green methane. What is the contribution of the different species in the total methane emission? If you see here, the buffaloes, these are the 22%. Then in case of the indigenous cattle, 29%. Then crossbred cattle, 9%. And then sheep, goat, and others. Others means yak, methone, camel, and other species. So in that way, so this is the distribution of the gases, methane by the different livestock species. Then friends, what is the contribution to the methane by the different species? If you see what is the contribution of the male and female, indigenous, then within indigenous, what is the contribution of the male and female, then buffalo, male and female, goat, male and female. So this is the more detailed distribution of the livestock species and their contribution to the total intermethane emission. As I told you in my presentation, that at present, this is the latest data which is available in the country, or which our country has reported to the UNO. This is based on the livestock population of the 2012, where we have 519 million heads. At that time, these estimates were made, and at that time, India was producing about 10.8 teragram of the methane. If you convert into teragram, it will come into 10.8 teragram of the methane. So if you see here, the mainly contribution of this, in case of the cattle, it is mainly the female. The contribution of the female, whether it is the crossbred cattle, or it is the buffalo, or the indigenous cattle, it is the female, because the population of the female livestock, female population is more. That is why the contribution of these female is more as compared to the cattle. Sorry, as compared to the male. Again, friends, just I want to have a look at what is the total dung produced in the country and what is the contribution of the dung management or by the dung, how much the methane and nitrous oxide is produced in the country. So if you see here, so this is the distribution of the different species, how much the dung is produced by the different species. Here you are seeing that 292 million tons of the methane is produced, sorry, the dung is produced, and this is the contribution, 128 gigagram, you can say 0.1 teragram of the methane is produced by the dung management, and 0.08 teragram, or you can say 81.9 gigagram of the nitrous oxide is produced from the dung management. So friends, just I want to give you a look at what are the different methods of estimation of the methane. So in the first one you are seeing here, it is the in vitro method. Some people are using the gas production system developed by the Menke system, and here we are using the pressure transducer technique, which we estimated for in vitro estimation of the different feeds and products in our laboratory, and for the in vivo studies we use this SF6 technique, sulfur hexafluoride technique that we have heard. So there are many other techniques, like respiratory chamber is there, but recently green feed method or technology that has come to estimate the methane emission from the livestock. But green feed technology or the methodology is not being adopted in our country, but some of the respiratory chambers, they have come into the NIMP Bangalore or also in the Veterinary University Mathura. So they have developed these facilities of respiratory chamber to estimate methane emission. Earlier this facility was available only in the IVRI, but the green feed methods or technology that is not available in our country. So mainly we are using the SF6 techniques for estimation of the methane from the, not only from the grazing animals, but also the stall-fed animals. So just I want to say what are the different techniques that are used to estimate the methane emission from the livestock. So friends, this maybe this is something different for you. So here, while calculating the methane emission for a particular sector, so there are some methods or emission factors which are used to estimate the methane. So D means default values. The D values, they are given by the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So that is given by the, they have given default values to calculate the methane emission either from the interfermentation, rice cultivation, or some other sectors. So most of the developed countries which have not developed their own methane emission factors, they are using the default values. But in case of the India has developed their country specific. CS means the country specific methane emission factors. India has produced or developed its country specific methane emission factor based on the methodology, based on the different experiments. In case of the rice cultivation, as it is here, but in case of the interfermentation, we are using default values as well as the country specific methane emission factors. So we are using both these two things for calculating the interfermentation from the livestock sector. So just I want to show these are the different, you can say the methodologies which are used to estimate the different gases, whether it is the methane or nitrous oxide, while reporting to the UNO. Now, friends, as I told you in my early slide, that why we are estimating the methane and what is the disadvantage of the methane. You see, as I told you, that it causes loss of the gross energy of the feed and fodders. So in some of my slides, in coming slides, I will show how much the gross energy of a particular feed is lost as methane. Here, if you see, in case of the, this is mainly for the dry fodder. You can say here the barley straw, oat straw, sorghum stover, wheat straw, gram straw, lentil straw, permanent stover, maize stover, rice straw, or dry grass. So these are the main dry roughages that are fed or used for feeding of livestock. If you see how much the methane is produced per kg of the feed fermented, these values are in the per kg, and the red one it is the percentage of the gross energy lost as methane. Here you will see in most of the cases, there is a loss of the gross energy of the particular feed up to the 10% if you take care of the dentist. So depending upon the quality of the feed, the loss of the gross energy in form of the methane is varies. My very purpose of showing these slides is that there is a loss of the gross energy of the feed during the methane production while the animal is digesting or fermenting the particular feed in the rumen. Again, here you will see this is for the green fodders. You see, you have seen here that the loss of the gross energy as methane was more in case of the most of the dry fodders, but in case of the green fodders it is less. If you see in case of the bersim, oat, bersim, lucerne, barley, or then these are some of the grasses. My purpose is that if the quality of the feed is better, then the loss of the gross energy as methane is less, because in case of the dry fodders, the structural carbohydrates were more. In that case, during the fermentation, the production of the acetic acid was more. That is why if the production of the acetic acid is more during fermentation, there will be more hydrogen available to the methogens, and with the use of the carbon dioxide, they will produce more methane. But in case the structural carbohydrates are less and non-structural carbohydrates are more, in that case, there will be shift in the VFA production. In that case, it will either towards the propionate or butyrate. In that case, the production of the methane will be less, and that is why in case of the green fodders, because they are having more good quality, more proportion of this non-structured carbohydrate, that is why there is shift in the VFA composition, means more propionate production, and that is why the methane production is less. So in this slide, just I want to say that depending upon the quality of the feed and fodder, there is a loss of the gross energy in terms of the methane. Again, here you are seeing that in case of the cotton seed cake, then gram chunni, rice bran, wheat grain, maize grain, oat grain. So these are the important grains and their byproducts which are fed to the livestock. Groundnut cake, cotton seed cake, mustard seed cake. So these are the different feeds, energy feed, and the or cakes, protein sources which are fed to the livestock. So accordingly, depending upon the quality of the feed, we can formulate our feeding system so that the production of the methane is less. Again, friends, in some of my slides, I will show at our IGFRI, we simulated the feeding system which are prevailing in the country. So accordingly, we divided the country into the 10 agroecological regions based on the feeding systems. The Western Himalayan region, and then Eastern Himalayan region, Eastern Plateau and plains, then Middle Gangetic Plain, Upper Gangetic Plain, and like that, we distributed of the whole country in the 10 agroecological regions. And then we prepare the different type of the rations based on the feed and fodder available in those localities on those regions. So, for example, in case of the Western Himalayan region, we use the grass, then sorghum, stover, wheat straw, and then we take the lucerne, bersim, and some of the tree leaves, because it was not possible to choose each and every the feed and fodder. But what are the most common feed and fodder that we selected, and accordingly we formulated 30 diets, 3 diets for each region for maintenance, growing, lactating, or you can say for the producing animals. So in that way, we formulated the 30 diets. In the coastal region, then we use the Lucina, and then Pedistra, because Pedistra is mainly used in that region. So depending upon the main feed resources, we formulated these 30 feeds for different agroecological regions. And then similarly, we also prepared the concentrated mixtures depending upon the what is the feed is available in particular you can say the agroecological zone. So in that way, we formulated 9 types of the concentrated mixtures to supplement those diets that we formulated earlier. So in a whole, we tried to have the picture of the country, the whole country, that what are the main feeding system, and what is their methane emission potential, so that we can come to know that which feeding system is more efficient in terms of the methane emission. Friends, as you see here, we uh, utilized those 10 diets, not only in case of the one species. We use the buffalo, we use the goat, we use the sheep. And then we see what is the methane production from different species. Our purpose was that what is the variation. If a particular feed is given to the buffalo, then it is given to the goat and given to the sheep. Then whether there is a variation within the species. So these slides will show you that what is the variation within the species in terms of the methane emission potential, depending upon the ecology and microbiota and adaptability of the particular species. So here you see there is a quite difference between the species. So within the buffalo, there may be some variation also. Within the buffalo breed variation may also be there. Within the within the goat species, the breed variation may be there. In the sheep also, breed variation may also be there. But this was our purpose, that whether the buffalo main species, they differ in terms of the methane emission potential. Definitely, there is a variation in the methane emission potential between the species. As you see, it varies from 25, 32, 21. So it is the 21 gram or 30 gram of the feed per kg of the digestible dry matter. So the unit is gram per kg of the digestible dry matter in different human species. So friends, in that way, we simulate that how much if we feed these 30 diets to the livestock in the country, and these are the main species, and if we use these values to calculate the methane emission, whether it is at par or close to the experiments that we conducted directly on the livestock by conducting the in vivo methane emission trials. So our values, they were quite close to those values. Most of the values reported by the different institutes and different organizations, and that how much the methane is produced by feeding a particular diet per kg of. So our values were quite within the range of those values. Again, I told you that how much the loss of the gross energy is there if a particular diet is fed. For example, in case of the grass and grevia of leaves, you are feeding to the buffalo, then goat, and then sheep. You see, the loss of the gross energy is more. It varies from 8 to 11%. So there is a loss of the gross energy in terms of methane between the species. So there is a variation within the species in terms of the methane emission or loss of the, because it shows the efficiency of their human, how much the efficient of a human of a particular species. So this picture shows that there is a variation within the species, not only in terms of the methane production, but also in terms of the loss of the gross energy in terms of the methane between the different or among the different species. Again, you would say, so you see, so in most of the cases, you see the loss of the dietary energy, it varies between 6% to 10%, depending upon the quality and the animal species. So this is the variation of the methane emission potential of the different species in terms of the loss of the gross energy by methane. Friends, in this slide you are seeing that how much the methane is produced per day by per head, by per livestock. If it is goat, in case of the goat, if you see, if it is less than 1 year, then 4.35 gram the methane will be produced in 1 day. If it is more than 1 year, then 7.23 gram. So again, it is depends on the intake, because it is the amount of the feed or the amount of the feed that is ingested by the animal. It will influence the methane production or the amount of the methane production. That is why in case of this is the value that we normally used when we have a population less than 1 year, then we will use this value 4.35. If the livestock population or the goat population which is more than 1 year, then we will use 7.23 factor. In case of the goat male and female, again these are the different values. In case of the dry, because the dry animals, they are mainly maintained on the maintenance diet, so that is why we are not offering the animal as per the requirement. That is why the value is less. Then if you in case of the seed, then you see 5.21. Then in case of the crossbred female, these are the values: sheep, male, female, sheep, indigenous. So these are the different values of the methane that is produced per day, depending on the species and sex, whether it's male or female, and age. So these are the 3-4 factors: age, sex, and species. How the methane emission per day is influenced by these factors. Friends, again here you see in the picture of the country, what is the contribution of a particular region to the total methane emission. If you see the Western Himalayan region, it is producing less as compared to you see the Central Plateau, Western Plateau and hills, Trans and Upper Gangetic Plain, and the Middle and Gangetic Plain. So the Western Himalayan region, Eastern Himalayan region, and the coastal region, followed by Western Dry Zone. So these are the 4 agroecological zones which are producing less methane as compared to the other agroecological zones. So the maximum contribution is coming from these 2: Central Plateau Hills, it is mainly the southern part of the UP, Southeast Rajasthan, Northern MP, and Chhattisgarh. It is contributing about 1.57 teragram. While in case of the Western Plateau Hills, interior part of the Maharashtra, southwestern part of the MP and Gujarat, so it is contributing about 1.56 teragram. So the total methane emission, the contribution of these 2 zones is more, because the population of the livestock is here more. That is why their contribution to the total methane emission is more. Again, friends, you can see within the different regions what is the contribution of the different livestock species to the total methane emission. If you see, in case of the region agroecological zones 4 and 5, the population is buffalo is more. That is why the contribution of the buffalo to the total methane emission is more by the buffalo. And then in case of the cattle, you see in zone 7 and zone 6, the contribution, and also in zone 3, the contribution is cattle is more, because the cattle population is more in these regions as compared to the other parts. Again, this is the contribution by what is the percent contribution of the different species. You see, it is contributing more than 52% of the methane is emitted by the cattle, and then by the buffaloes, and then other species there. So this is if you talk in terms of the what is the growing animals and the producing or lactating animals and maintaining an animal, maintenance type of the livestock. In that case, you see the animals which are milk producers, or they are used for the breeding or production, wool production, milk production, meat production, any production that we put on the lactate category. So the contribution of the producing animals, which are in terms of the meat, wool, milk, more as compared to the growing animals and the maintenance type of the animals. This slide shows, friends, as I told you, that there may be variation within the breed also. So this is one of the example that the study that we conducted at IGFRI, we found that in terms of the Badauri and Murrah, if you know, the Badauri is one of the breeds which is very hardy. It is mainly known for its high fat contents in the milk. But if you see, by its adaptability, this breed was mainly reared in the ravines, and that is why the microflora is more cellular type in this breed. And we have conducted some studies. We find that if the quality of the feeding fodder is poor, then the digestibility is more in case of the Badauri than in case of the Murrah. So here you will see per kg of the milk produced, the amount of the methane produced is less in case of the Badauri. You see here, it is around 40 to 43 or 44 gram of the methane per kg of the milk produced in case of the Badauri, which is low as compared to the Murrah. So this shows the breed difference in terms of the methane production. So friends, these are some of the methane emission factors that I have already told to you. So I will skip this slide. Yeah. So friends, in the coming slides, I will, so far I discussed about the methane production, what is the methane emission potential of the different feeds and fodders, what is the scenario of the methane on the other gas production in the country, what is the contribution of the livestock over the years. So that was discussed in my earlier slides. Now the second part of my presentation is the mitigation or reduction of the methane. So friends, these are the two main parts, you can say, the feed associated factors and the rumen associated factors. In feed associated factors, it is the feed intake, how much the animal is taking, what is the amount is feed is being ingested by the livestock. So it is influencing the methane production. Then type of the diet, type of the roughage, type of the concentrate, what is the roughage to concentrate ratio, the type of the pasture level, frequency of the feeding, and composition of the diet. So these are the dietary factors which are associated with the methane production. In the right hand, you see what are the factors which are associated with the rumen. It is the saliva flow, then dynamics of the passage of rate, rumen pH, types of the population of the rumen microbes, then acetate propionate ratio, rumen protozoa concentration, then degradation, type of the substrate fermentation rate, and type of the VFA produced. So friends, so I will discuss all these factors in the coming slides and how they are influencing the methane emission from the livestock. So it is the more comprehensive strategies to reduce the indirect methane from the livestock. You can say here, they are the management strategies, then the nutrition strategy, the human manipulation strategies, and some of the advanced strategies. So these are the 4 types of the strategies that can be adopted for the methane mitigation or methane reduction. But some of the, most of these strategies which are available in the developed world, they have not found a place in the normal farming conditions, but so they are applicable in the commercial dairies, but they are not easily, because they are cost effective and they are not easy in use. That is why they are not finding place in the normal farming conditions. So again, friends, the management strategies is the, what is the lactation, depending on the yield of the animal, then what is the number of the animals, then improved nutrition, then strategic supplementation, and then how can we enhance the yield of the production of the livestock, then improve genetic selection, good quality animals, then improve grassland management, then alternative livestock system, what is the different feeding system and management system, and then management systems, then animal breeding. So these are the management strategies, and the nutritional strategies, they include the plant breeding. Then we will discuss in the plant breeding. If the plant breeders, they can develop the variety which is high in soluble sugars, more in protein, then definitely the availability of the nutrients will be more to the livestock, and the yield will be more. In that way, the so in that way, the plant breeders, they can help to develop the strategies to develop the feed which may lead to the less methane. Then what is the forage quality? It is again based on the plant breeders. Then dietary supplementation, concentrate, oil, tannin, non-essential. These are the different supplements which are fed to the livestock. Then certain acids, then enzymes, probiotics, appropriate enhancers, and there are some other strategies to balance the diet. So these are the different strategies that comes under the nutrition strategies. Then comes the human manipulation and the advanced strategies. So friends, you are seeing here, then I will discuss in my coming slides one by one. So these are some of the another strategies that can be utilized to mitigate the methane, improve genetic selection of new methane producing animals. Then efforts must be taken to reduce livestock population and improve nutrition. So these are the same things which are coming, which I have shown in the previous slides. So friends, as I told, how the forage breeders, they can help us to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So these are some of the points here. High water soluble carbohydrates in grasses. So this is one of the very important thing that the breeders can breed the grasses which are high in soluble water soluble hard carbohydrates. If the concentration of the water soluble hard carbohydrates is more and if the diet is rich in the protein, then there will be synchrony between the carbohydrate and protein. If we achieve the synchrony of the carbohydrate and protein, in that way the microprotein synthesis will be more and the production efficiency or the human fermentation efficiency will be less, and there will be more production of the propionate, and then in that case the methane production will be less. Then increase the digestibility through the reduced lignification. This can be utilized in case of the highly digestible feeds like the persimmon or loose, mainly the persimmon or some clovers. These techniques can be followed by the breeders, that they can lignify or they can introduce some amount of the tannins so that there is a less reduction of the proteins and other things at the human level and more proteins available at the intestinal level. So if we adopt the feeds or we develop this such kind of the feeds which is moderate in the tannins, if we develop such type of the legumes, in that case there will be more utilization of the nitrogen and the nitrous oxide production from the dung, because there will be less excretion in the dung and the nitrous oxide production will be less if we introduce the moderate level of the tannins in case of the legumes. Then again, tannins I have already discussed, most of the things I have. Then the last point is the breeding of the forage crops which have hyaluronic acids. There are many studies in the developed world where they are increasing the malate, fumarate, and propionate concentration in case of the fodders. If our breeders, they can develop some such varieties which are rich in malate and fumarate, in that case the production of the methane will be less. If any particular fodder is rich in the malate and fumarate, then definitely by feeding that particular feed and fodder, the methane production will be less. So friends, as I told you that the forage quality, it is one of the important criteria which influences the methane production, because as I discussed earlier, the quality is mainly dependent upon the structural carbohydrate or the non-structural carbohydrates. So these are the easily digestible cell wall contents and these are the cell wall components. Definitely if a feed and fodder which is rich in the cell wall contents, then there will be more digestibility, more acetic production and more methane per kg of the milk be there. And if the feed is rich in the soluble contents or cell contents, in that case the production of the propionate or the butyrate will be more and that of acetic acid will be less. In that case there will be decrease in the methane production, because the availability of the production of the hydrogen it will be less if the production of the propionic acid is more. In that case the less hydrogen will be produced or used by the methogens to produce the methane. Again, this is one of the examples how the quality of the grass, it is influencing the average daily gain in the animals. If you see, to attain a weight 1 kg of the gain, in case of the high quality, it is producing around 160 gram of the methane. But if the quality of the grass is poor, in that case, to attain a 1 kg of the body weight gain, the methane production is 180 gram. This shows that the quality of the fodder greatly influence the production of the methane per kg of the product, whether it is the weight gain, whether it is the milk, whether it is the wool, or whether it is the air. Friends, again we will discuss how the concentrate in the diet, how the roughage and concentrate ratio they affect the methane emission. Definitely, if the feed is rich in if the diet is rich in the concentrate, then definitely the amount of the structural component will be less, because our concentrates, they are low in structural carbohydrate and rich in the non-structural carbohydrate. Again, if the feed or diet is having more proportion of the concentrate, then definitely the methane production will be less. So this is one of the examples here, that if you increase the concentration of the ration in the diet, as you are seeing here, some of the there is a reduction in the methane production per kg of the milk produced. Means if we are using 8 to 6 kg of the concentrate in the ration, then the methane production is less. And then if we are using less amount of the concentrate, then the methane production is more. Again, it is because the concentrates which are rich in the non-structural carbohydrate, when fed to the livestock and fermented in the human, again there is a shift in the VFA concentration. The proportion of the propionic acid is more, and the production of the acetic acid is less. That's why the methane production per kg of the milk or per kg of the wool is less. Again, this is the how the grain processing is affecting the methane production. Again, it's in the same way. It is going to manipulate the rumen through the fermentation, or it is going to shift the VFA production, its composition, and it is going to shift the VFA production more towards the propionic acid. That is why the methane production per kg of the product will be less. Again, the pasture type, friends, how the pasture type or quality will affect the methane production. Again, it depends upon its composition, what kind of the grasses, what is the composition of the grasses, what are the different shrubs, tree leaves, what is their composition, what are the anti-nutritional factors. All these things, they influence the methane production. So mainly the pasture which is rich in the legumes, in tannin and sponins, definitely the methane production will be less. If the pasture grasses which are rich in the water-soluble carbohydrates, in that case, the methane production will be less. So it is the composition of the pasture which will influence the methane production. So again, this is the example. Normally we say if a pasture is overgrazed and if a pasture is less grazed, then what will be the effect of overgrazing on the methane production from the livestock? Here you will see this is the light grazed and this is the high grazed. If you see the loss of the gross energy, in case of the less grazed pasture is less as compared to the high grazed. Again, the methane production per kg of the diameter intake is less in case of the less grazed pasture compared to the high grazed pasture. Again, it is because of the quality and composition of the biomass that is available in that particular pasture. Friends, this is the study that we conducted here at our IFRI. You see, there is a clear-cut variation how the herbage quality or the type of the pasture affect the methane production or its digestibility. You see here, we have a sown pasture, we have a natural pasture, we have a improved pasture. Again, you see, in case of the improved pasture, you will see here, the methane production is less as compared to the sown pasture and natural pasture. If you see why it is less in case of the improved pasture than the sown pasture, because the sown pastures, it is having only 1 or 2 species. But in case of the improved pastures, we have removed the undesirable species and introduced certain shrubs and trees and other desirable legumes. That is why the quality of the improved pasture is better as compared to the sown and natural pastures. That is why the methane production and digestibility both, they are more in case of the improved pastures compared to the sown and natural pastures. This friends, this is one of the examples of the how the we are have the idea that the probiotics and probiotics, how they influence the rumen. So this is one of the examples that how the probiotics in form of the lactic acid based bacteria, how they will influence the methane production. So these are the different ways why and how the lactic acid bacteria, they will influence the methane production. First is that they will make a shift in the human fermentation and definitely towards the more propanedic production and less acidic production. Secondly, they will directly inhibit the human methogens. They will decrease their concentration, and then the methane production will be less. And third one is that they will produce the concentration of the bacteria, like the estrogens. In that case, they will utilize the hydrogen, and then they will not allow to propagate the methogens. And if estrogens are more, then in that case, the utilization of the hydrogen will be more, and there will be no conversion of the hydrogen in the methane. It will be in the carbon stage. So mainly the addition of the lactic acid bacteria, it will stimulate the growth of the lactic utilizing bacteria, leading to increased production of the propionic acid, and thus the less methane production, because they will make a shift in the VFA production towards the more propionic and less acetic acid. So it is doing in the same way like the other things. So friends, some of the compounds, pure compounds, have been utilized by the many countries. Like this is one of the compounds, that's 3-nitroxypropanol. This is the compound. How it is being utilized in many countries to mitigate the methane production from the lactating animals. The function of this compound is that it, if you see the methane production, this methogen bacteria, they have 3 types of the coenzyme system, and this particular compound inhibit the enzyme which is in the final stage where the methane is carbon dioxide and hydrogen after utilization is converted into the methane. The last step where methyl coenzyme reductase, this is inhibited by this particular compound. In that case, the activity of this compound is inhibited. That is why the methane production is less by using this particular compound. Friends, and hurriedly in my 3-4 slides, in the next 3-4 slides, I will show what the IGFRI has done here. The work, friends, at IGFRI we have isolated some of the polyphenolic compounds because they are the naturally occurring compounds in most of the tree leaves and shrubs. We have isolated from the 5 to 6 tree species, and we have tested their efficacy, how they can mitigate the methane production by manipulating the rumen fermentation. So these are some of the compounds you are seeing. So they are from the Jatropha, then from the Moringa, then we have from the Bale, then Aglamarmalus, and then you can see from the then you see here from the Chakedi, Chakranjo virosa. So these are some of the tree leaves, shrubs that are commonly fed to the livestock. We collected the samples and then we extracted the compounds, polyphenol compounds in our laboratory, and then we see their efficacy, how they can mitigate the methane production. So friends, in this slide you are seeing one of the compounds, J7, that we isolated from the Jatropha. And when we see its efficacy, that how it is affecting the methane production, you see we have a diet, wheat starch percent concentrated mixture-based diet was there. And these are the three different levels of this particular compound that we isolated at 0.2 level, 0.6 and 1% level. Here you will see how it is affecting the methane production. In case of the control, you will see here the methane production is 25 ml per gram. But with the addition of this compound, there is decrease in the methane production. It was at 0.2% level, it was 15. Then at 0.6, it was 10. And then at 1%, it was 8. You see, there is decrease in the methane production with the addition of the this GO7 compound. But friends, again, you will see here, it is inhibiting the diameter digestibility. That is not desirable. So we have to make the level of the compound where the reduction in the diameter digestibility is not more. Because if there is reduction in the diameter digestibility of the diet, then the availability of the nutrients will be less. So we have to choose a level where there is a reduction in the methane production as well as there is no reduction in the dietary diameter digestibility. Again, in case of the oat starch percent concentrated diet, you see here there is a drastic decrease in the methane production by the addition of this particular compound in the diet. This is the third diet that we tested here. It is sorghum starch percent concentrate based diet. So again, you see how there is decrease in the you can see the methane production. But again, we have to choose which level we have to adopt, whether 0.2, 0.6 or 1%. So we have to decide the dose and the level depending upon its effect on the degradation or digestibility of the diet. This is another compound that we isolated from the bale, Aegalus marmoleus, AM5. Again, here you will see that there is a decrease in the methane production, but it is decrease on the cost of the diameter digestibility. So again, in case of oat starch percent concentrated mixture, you see here there is decrease in the rate of the methane production. This is the compound that we isolated from the Maduka longifolia. Again, you see here how it is affecting the diameter digestibility and the methane production. You see here, in most of the cases, this compound, it is inhibiting the diameter digestibility. So this compound is cannot be recommended for methane mitigation strategies. So some of the compounds in the earlier slide you see, we can make use of those compounds up to a certain level where the digestibility is not influenced, but there is reduction in the methane production. Again, this is the compound that we isolated from the Jamun. Again, you see here. Here, there is a more than around, you can say around 43% reduction in the methane production. But again, there is reduction in the methane production only by 3 units. So this level only, this 0.2% level is adequate to use to mitigate the methane production, because here in this case the diameter digestibility is not more. So friends, in these slides you see what are some of the compounds that we isolated. There are a number of the compounds. I am not showing all those compounds here. We have isolated from the different feed and fodders, and we found them very efficient or which have a high potency or efficacy to reduce the methane production if they are used in the feeding system, then they can be. हेलो, हाँ डॉक्टर साहब नमस्कार। सॉरी मैं डॉक्टर साहब मेरी प्रेजेंटेशन चल रही है, 1 मिनट में बात करूँ। वो जेएनडी की मेरी प्रेजेंटेशन चल रही है सर, लास्ट खत्म होने वाली, एक मिनट बाद। So sorry friends. So in the so we have isolated a number of the compounds, as I told you, from many tree leaves and shrubs, and we are in the process that how can these compounds we can know the chemical composition of these compounds, and if we can produce in the laboratory synthetically in large scale and then using the compound feed industry, then definitely it will be a very good effort from our institute that can be that can lead to produce the less methane from particularly from the commercial dairies where they are using mainly the TMR and the compound feeds. So friends, this what are the main concerns? Poor or low livestock productivity. In our country, the main concern is that our livestock productivity is very poor. If you see, when they developed world or the other countries, when they express their methane production, they never say the methane production, how much the methane produced by a particular animal. They don't say like that. They say how much the methane is produced to produce 1 kg of the milk, 1 kg of the meat, 1 kg of the wool or any product. In that way, our animals, because they are low yielders, that is why the methane production per kg of the product is much higher than the developed world. As such, our animals might not be producing more methane, total methane, but when it comes in terms of the methane production per unit of the product, milk product, in that case, definitely our animals are much higher as compared to the most of the high producing animals. The second concern is the poor quality feed and products, because it is most of the feed and products available in the country, they are of the poor quality, right? That is why the methane production is more, because the fermentation of those poor quality feeds is more towards the acetic acid production. That is why the methane production more. It is another concern for our, because why our animals are producing more methane. Then the cost-effective, farmer-friendly methane mitigation strategies. Friends, most of the strategies that are available in the developed world, they are not cost-effective, because our animals were low yielders. If we use those additives, supplements, or probiotic or anything, if we use in our farmer conditions, in that way, it may not be economical to our farmers. That is why it is another concern for us. So we have to develop a strategy which is low cost, easily adaptable, and farmers friendly, so that that can be adopted very easily by our livestock, because in our country the livestock sector is not organized like the developed world. So these are the main 3 concerns. And fourth one may be because most of the techniques that are available right now, they have some effect either on they have a health or food safety issues. They are either not good to the livestock, access to the animal, host animal, or when to the product that is produced after the feeding of those particular compound, or you can say the supplement. So the fourth may be the health and food safety may be the fourth concern. So the future strategies, definitely which are the concerns in the opposite, they will be our strategies. Strategies are required on plant secondary compounds to rear animals, both with relative methane production and enhanced food efficiency. So this is we have to develop such kind of the studies where the methane production is less, as well as the productivity of the animal is more. Research is needed on development of biomarkers to estimate the methane emission from the ruminants. So this is we have to develop a relation between the host and its microbes, because it has been found that the concentration and the microbial population, it varies with the livestock species. So we have to establish a relationship between the host and the microbes, so that we can breed animal with a desirable type of the microbes. Then need to develop the more thinking strategies for grazing animals, because the strategies are not available for the grazing animals. Hello. Okay, sorry. There's just time to finish. Okay, na? So this is okay. So I will stop in right now. Okay, no problem. Okay. So friends, these are some of these future strategies that can be adopted to mitigate the methane emission or from the livestock sector. So I am stopping here right now.
Thank you, sir, for such a valuable presentation. And on behalf of NADCL and on behalf of IGFRI and all the participants, I thank you, sir. Usually we go for a question answer session if there is time, but I think we have gone over our limit by half an hour.
Sorry, please, you can take the questions, because director has called me 2 times. My head are also calling me. So I will not be available
No
right
problem,
now.
no problem, sir. We will not take
So
the
you
question answer
take
session.
questions,
No,
you
no, we will want to
like-
thank you, and questions may be sent to us in via chat. And I thank you for, on behalf of everyone, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Participants can leave. This session is now closed. Join back us tomorrow for the next morning session. Thank you.